Well, I believe that eliminating the right of women to make decisions about when and whether to have.
First of all, don't let me even get started about how egregious and how sickening it is that you're talking up here talking the impact of taking away a woman's autonomy from her. Jesus fucking Christ. People are tone deaf. I don't
Have children would have very damaging effects on the economy and would set women back decades.
Who gives a shit what effect it has on the economy?
To reproductive health care, including abortion, helped lead to increased labor force participation. It enabled many women to finish school. That increased their earning potential. It allowed women to plan and balance their families and careers. And research also shows that.
I mean, that she is bringing it back to that. You know, the reasons why a woman would want to terminate a pregnancy, not because like they hate children and want to murder babies like Republicans make it out to be, but because that they're just not prepared for it. They've got too much on their plate. It was an accident that they got pregnant to begin with. All of the statistics show that women that have abortions go on to have children at the same rates as women in the normal population. It's like a fourth of women have had abortions. Women have abortions after they've had multiple children. They're like, I can't handle another one and have an abortion. But like none of this shit should even be a factor. It's not. Nobody should have to justify that to some crusty old white fuck.
It had a favorable impact on the well-being and earnings of children. There are many research studies that have been done over the years looking at the economic impacts of access or lack thereof to abortion, and it makes clear that denying women access to abortion increase their odds of living in poverty or need for public assistance.
For half of the population of America, eliminating a right that has existed for half a century, particularly for low-income and minority women who have already shouldered much of the burden from the COVID pandemic, would be a disaster.
It would be a disaster, but I mean, like, I don't like the framing of it. But I get where they're coming from because one of the arguments in the opinion, the draft opinion that was leaked by the Supreme Court was that we lack a domestic supply of infants. The horrifying implication of Judge Alito's most alarming footnote. Domestic supply of infants is exactly what the framers of the 14th Amendment intended to abolish. One of the most arresting lines in Justice Samuel Alito's 98-page draft opinion reversing Roe v. Wade is a footnote that didn't really surface until the weekend. A throwaway footnote on page 38 of the draft cites data from the CDC showing that in 2002, nearly 1 million women were seeking to adopt children, whereas the domestic supply of infants relinquished at birth or within the first month of life and available to be adopted has become virtually non-existent. In response to the outrage and some misinformation, the conservative legal industrial complex went to great lengths to downplay it as a trivial footnote in a draft opinion, that Alito was citing the CDC and not himself, and that the note appears in a roundup of people are saying type arguments against abortion. CFC Hearts, welcome. Thank you for being a freaking follower. The footnote reflects something profoundly wrong with the new ethos of care arguments advanced by Republicans who want to emphasize compassion instead of cruelty after the Dobbs fallout. Footnote 46, quantifying the supply-demand mismatch of babies, follows directly on another footnote in the opinion, approvingly citing the logic, quote unquote, raised at oral arguments in December by Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who mused that there is no meaningful hardship in conscripting women to remain pregnant and deliver babies in 2022 because safe haven laws allow them to drop those unwanted babies off at the fire station for other parents to adopt. That was the impetus for the skit on Saturday Night Live during the Weekend Update where Kate McKinnon was playing Amy Coney Barrett. And she's like, do your 9 months and drop it off. The supply chain is limiting the import of fresh babies. God damn. Second, only to the creeping chatter of state birth control bans, the speedy pivot to celebrating forced birth and adoption is chilling. It's chilling not just because it discounts the extraordinary emotional and financial costs of childbirth and the increased medical risks of forced childbirth. It's chilling because it lifts us out of a discussion about privacy and bodily autonomy and into a regime in which babies are a commodity and pregnant people are vessels in which to incubate them. If this sounds like a familiar, albeit noxious, economic concept, it's because it is. That's one of the things I get so tired of fucking right-wingers, their arguments that a baby is punishment for having sex. Well, you knew the consequences when you spread your legs. Fuck off. Fuck off, motherfuckers. Accidents happen. I live in sexual anarchy.
You live in sexual anarchy?
Then again, the people I sleep with nowadays aren't usually the... I'm getting kind of old is what I'm saying. You know, somebody brought out Bernie Sanders. Weird that, you know, Bernie Sanders has been on the forefront of issues like this. Still out there fighting harder than any other fucking Democrat. Sanders says Democrats must end filibuster to protect abortion access. Senate leaders prepare a vote on Democrats' bill to protect abortion rights on the federal level. Senators like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren are calling on lawmakers to end the filibuster so that the bill can actually be passed. Fucking Chucky Schumer. They're all just going to go out there and do this little dance. It's not going to pass because of the filibuster. Manchin's going to vote against the filibuster. Simmons going to vote against the filibuster. They're going to be like, what can we do? We can't do anything to protect the rights. But Bernie Sanders is saying, yes, we actually can. We can force people to vote to end the filibuster. If Republicans can end the filibuster to install right-wing judges nominated by presidents who lost the popular vote in order to overturn Roe v. Wade, Democrats can and must end the filibuster to keep abortion legal, Sanders said in a tweet. Shortly after Donald Trump took office in 2017, Republicans took advantage of their slim majority to change the Senate rules in order to allow right-wing Supreme Court nominee Neil Gorsuch to be confirmed with a simple majority vote of 51 votes. The move capped off 10 months of obstruction by the GOP, led by then Majority Leader Senator Mitch McConnell, to block President Barack Obama's Supreme Court nominee, Merrick Garland. Vampire Hunter, what is going on? Welcome. The Multra Magas? I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about. Fuckers? I am indeed a fucker. That we can all agree on. I am a fucker. Ultra Magas. I think you are in the wrong place, Vampire Hunter. Love you though. Welcome. Thank you for being a freaking follower. Protesters showed up outside of Kavanaugh's home and the Dome Police lost its mind. I'm going to show you a couple different examples of that. Asking for civility in the face of systematic violence is playing right into the oppressor's hand. According to plenty of tweets in my feed these past few days, it sure seems like a lot of people can excuse stripping people of their reproductive rights, but draw a hard line at noise complaints. Following Politico's blockbuster scoop last week of the Supreme Court's draft decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, people took to the streets, Pro-choice protests sprung up all across the country over the weekend, from D.C. to Baltimore to Oakland. But what has gotten folks most riled up is that the protesters took their outrage straight to the source, the steps of Justice Brett Kavanaugh and Justice John Roberts. As we pointed out last night, one of the organizers was Kavanaugh's neighbor. The energy is markedly more negative outside Kavanaugh's house. The anger has become much more palpable than outside any other justice's house.
We will not go back. I see you, buddy. We will not go back. We will not go back. We will not go back. We will not go back.
Footage from various news outlets show that protesters, armed with raincoats and homemade signs with snappy pro-choice slogans, gathered outside of the judge's home to exercise their freedom of speech and assembly. While their anger and frustration were palpable, the protests were far from violent. Yet, by the way, some people have described the demonstrations outside Kavanaugh's home. You would have sworn that the protesters ripped him and his family out of their beds and executed them in the middle of the street. Spoiler alert, they didn't. According to Blair, this was one of the scariest things I've ever witnessed. I assume that's like Rand Paul saying where he was assaulted, where we all saw the video where he most certainly wasn't assaulted. Blair underestimated the power of milquetoast white liberalism at 9 a.m. this morning. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki tweeted the following in response to the demonstration. POTUS strongly believes in the constitutional right to protest. That should never include violence, threats, or vandalism. Judges perform an incredibly important function to our society. They must be able to do their jobs without concern for protection. This is what the protests look like, if you guys were wondering. This was actually outside of Alito's house. We're getting ready to talk about the protests outside of Alito's house that took place last night. Journalists covering demonstrations from Alito's house are being given wine and cheese by neighbors and key lime pie in another post. And funny how the neighbors respect the legal right to peaceful protest more than the legal people do. More than the legal people do. Fox News is now claiming that Judge Alito has gone into hiding. It is in Chevy Chase, Maryland. That's where they're protesting at, Safaria. Fox News hosts and Republican lawmakers are pushing a baseless rumor that Justice Alito has gone into hiding for his safety. Baseless rumor that Justice Samuel Alito was moved to an undisclosed location appears to trace back to a guest on Fox News. Republican lawmakers are running with it anyway. The rumor appears to have started with Georgetown University lecturer Ilana Shapiro, who started making the claim last week amid coverage of the Supreme Court leak that appeared to show the court was prepared to overturn Roe v. Wade. On a D.C. radio show, Shapiro said he heard a rumor that Justice Alito and his family have been taken to an undisclosed location, according to the Washington Post. He then repeated the claims to Fox News, telling the network, "I've heard that Justice Alito has been taken to an undisclosed location with his family." Shapiro on Monday told Politico that he followed up with that he was unsure if the rumor was true. "I don't have any non-public sources," Shapiro told the outlet. "I forgot whether I saw the rumor on Twitter or somebody told me. I don't know." Now, I do want to point out, if only the Supreme Court had ruled on this very issue in the past, we had some kind of legal basis. In the 90s, the Supreme Court held that protesting outside of the homes of abortion clinic employees is protected by the First Amendment. Oh. Whoever with the intent of interfering with, obstructing, or impeding the administration of justice, or with the intent of influencing any judge, juror, witness, or court official in the discharge of his duty, pickets or parades in or near a building. Now this is the one. Might actually have some bearing. Where's the actual decision at? Seeing people say, okay. In addition to the mention of that specific ruling, some people shared a screenshot of a website page about an anti-abortion protest-related ruling in the 1990s. From a piece titled Abortion Protests in Buffer Zones, the assessment, which was attributed to David L. Hudson Jr., First Amendment scholar, first reference Madsen versus Women's Health Center. The issue of buffer zones for anti-abortion demonstrators has reached the Supreme Court several times in recent years, beginning in 1994 with Madsen versus Women's Health Center. The state court ordered that anti-abortion demonstrators cannot protest within 36 feet of an abortion clinic, make loud noises within earshot of the clinic, display images observable from the clinic, approach patients within 300 feet of the clinic, or demonstrate within 300 feet of the residence of any clinic employee. The Supreme Court upheld the injunction in its entirety. The U.S. Supreme Court upheld the restrictions against demonstrating within 36 feet of the clinic, making loud noises within earshot of the clinic, and making loud noises within 300 feet of an employee's residence. The court rejected the prohibitions against displaying images, approaching patients within 300 feet of the clinic, and peacefully picketing within 300 feet of an employee's residence. Reaching its decision, the court announced a new test for cases in which speech is prohibited by an injunction. The injunction will be upheld unless it burdens more speech than is necessary to serve a significant government interest. Chucky Schumer, who usually doesn't have the right opinion on things, actually, made a very salient point earlier today when asked about protests in front of judges' homes.
Are you comfortable with the protests that we saw outside the homes of Supreme Court justices over the weekend?
If protests are peaceful, yes. My house there's protests 3-4 times a week outside my house. That's the American way to peacefully protest is okay. And that's my wife, sorry. Maybe there's a protest.
Wow.
But so as long as they are peaceful, that's okay with me. Yes.
There you go, Chucky Schumer. That is the correct answer.
The protests that we saw outside the homes of Supreme Court justices over the weekend?
Sir, I still think you should retire. You go and enjoy your elder years.